Gentlemen, but I am qualified to dream. And so I'm okay being on this panel because the reason I am is for NIAC, the NASA Innovative Advanced Concepts Program. And this, I guess, to start with what filmmakers should know about NASA, one thing you should know is that we do have some programs that take a look at what is on the edge of science fiction today and how we might make it reality in the future. I have the great privilege to be involved with the restart of NIAC to try to do that, to get good ideas from anywhere, inside the agency, outside, give them a chance, see if they might completely change what we can and can't do for the next generation.
What's an example?
Well, I actually have a graphic, if we can bring that up. I'm going to talk about a few. I was specifically asked here to talk about robotics. We can also do it in propulsion, in imaging a planet around a distant star. Many of the things that have been discussed earlier in this conference. With robotics specifically, thank you. Well, first of all, let me back up because you may not recognize many things here that look like robots. And so these are previous NIAC concepts that were studied. And so I highlight those here. Robotics, machines, things that help us do work. It's a little bit of a nebulous subject. So the question is, do you want to talk about a tool that involves some motor? Do you want to talk about something that looks like Robot from Lost in Space or R2-D2? What I have here on this slide are about 6 concepts. So there is up top, there's a thing that looks a little bit like a mechanical dragonfly. That's an entomopter. That would be a flying insect robot to explore Mars.
What's the name of that again?
Entomopter.
It's an entomopter, of course.
Of course it is.
Yeah. So that's like entomology?
Yes. From bugs.
Yeah.
So flying insect-shaped robot. And that's going to touch into a theme that I'm going to wrap up with. There is, coming down the right, there's sort of a cylinder and some bird-shaped things. Those are solid-state aircraft. This is a really cool idea. You just picture a thin, flexible wing. What this can do, it has no moving parts at all, but we can apply current through it. We can cause it to change shape, and then it can roll up for storage or deployment. It can unroll and glide or even flap.
So when you say no moving parts, no pulleys
or mechanisms, right? Hopefully none of the things that might break, wear, and so this might be a good way to go and fly and explore around different worlds, including ours. There are some little dots, little points of light on the blue world in the background. It might be hard to see. We were trying to work in concepts, air, land, sea, space. That's actually representing robo-swimmers. And this is a really neat concept where there are some, picture little robot fish, crabs, seahorses. But what they do is begin to explore on worlds that we heard of before that involve liquid oceans. Search for life in alien seas. And they actually, we deliberately in this concept use different kinds of robot, animal-like shapes like that that would evolve to search better when they found out what they were searching in and searching for. The thing in the middle is actually a modular assembly, and the key thing there is the flux-pinned interfaces between all the little bits.
Flux-pinned interfaces.
Yes.
Yeah, flux-pinned.
And so
tell us about the flux-pinned interfaces.
Pretty close to magic. The idea here is that those pieces, modular things that are doing whatever we need to do, will be kept in the right position without any mechanical connection and without energy being expended. So that is a really neat concept for things happening in space.
Okay. How do we do that? Flux is electromagnetic flux?
Electromagnetic flux, and it's exploiting a novel property of superconductors. And so this is exactly the kind of thing that if we learn to exploit this at the right distances, it might be able to pin these things using, you could think of it as a property of magnets. And then we don't expend any energy to keep them where we need them, or maybe even someday to move them.
So, okay, it's all very straightforward so far, but just for the rest of us, so these would be self-organizing? They would like find each other and so on?
Some. You're a great straight man because you just led me to the little system in the bottom left, the white one.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, so this particular configuration is only one that it might do. It's an autonomous self-extending machine. Reconfigures for the task at hand. And what's cool about this concept is we can launch the robot and then design it. We can figure out later what exactly we need it to do and how it should configure to go do that. And it might even be able to make copies of itself and self-organize.
So where would I use this thing?
This exact one is terrestrial. That's why we show it on a little moon there. It might scramble around on the sand, and it might help move other robots. But the concepts for something that can evolve and reconfigure itself are fairly unlimited.
Well, there. That's very cool. Thank you.
And the last one on this slide, in the upper left, there's sort of a squadron headed toward an asteroid. That is the League of Extraordinary Machines. That is the actual name of the concept that the design. So you continue to inspire us, and you have done so. And this is one of the more interesting concepts I've seen for trying to protect us from asteroids that might one day impact the Earth.
What does the League do?
Basically, we distribute them around as we can afford to do so. It's trying to be efficient. And then, as we detect something that's going to come too close to the Earth, we send the nearest ones. They land there, and they basically, in a high-tech way, break off little bits of the thing they've landed on and jet it in the direction so that it moves a tiny bit, and by the time it gets to us, it misses.
Instead of doing it in a low-tech way. What's the propulsion for the League?
In space or on the ground?
You pick.
Depends on the time frame you have. It really does, like a lot of in-space propulsion.
Well, let's say Apophis were going to hit us. Apophis is an asteroid that will almost certainly miss, but there were a few months there people thought it might hit us, and it's near the orbit of Venus, and Apophis, if you're scoring along with us, is named after the Greek god of anxiety. So let's say an Apophis-like object were coming toward us, what would you do?
Pick another object, because we should already have these things deployed for them to have time. The description we got earlier said that it really depends on the time when you detect and intercept. And so if you have time, you can use a very slight push. A few of these things grinding.
Oh yes, this is 2036, 2038 kind of thing.
And so, yeah, it really does depend on the number you can land and how hard they need to push.
But how are they going to push?
These grind away the surface they're actually on and use it as a mass drive.
But what's the propulsion?
In space?
Yeah.
I would probably pick an ion drive in general, but you need some time to get them there, so it depends.
Ion drive. Ion drive for the League of Extraordinary Machines. That's cool. No, that's cool. Because it's not that crazy, right? I mean, if you're 30 years from now, maybe.
Well, the neat thing about NIAC concepts is they often sound crazy when we start. And this exact program is doing some math to figure out if the case closes, if this does what we think it'll do, if we could afford it, if it might work. And our hope is, out of all the crazy ideas, a few of them really pay off and become reality.
It's great. Thank you. Thank you. Michael.
Well, what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the history of Mars so that we can understand what its future might be.